Hey guys, this is Dream. I wanted to make a video talking about the Coach of the Year for Season 1 of Overwatch League now that the regular season's over. Just kind of talk about who I think the best coaches were, who the candidates are for Coach of the Year. So if we take a look at kind of what it means to be Coach of the Year, right? You're gonna have to be on a team that's um, places fairly well, kind of either meets or exceeds expectations. We see improvements over time from the team as a whole and from players on the team. We want to see good strats, good counter strats, teamwork, a good team environment, right? All those things go into good coaching, and you would want the coach of the year to be displaying all those things. So I think there are a few front runners in my opinion here. I have put up some of the more known and some less known coaches that could be candidates. But I think the best way to talk about it is just to take a look at the actual standings for the end of the season, and it's pretty clear that all the teams kind of in the bottom half have definitely had big consistency issues. Individual players kind of getting worse on the team over time, maybe even the team itself getting worse over time. So I would say, Tyrong, Beast, Krusty, Arrow, Mineral, RUI, none of these head coaches are really in the running for Coach of the Year. Now, when we get into the top half, London and Philly, I think, have very high peaks, but they still do have similar inconsistency issues that we see on these bottom tier teams. And they also rely really heavily on individual performances, kind of players popping off to really be looking at their best. They're not teams that are known for their really tight play, their really smart strats, or anything like that. So Changoon for the Spitfire and Kirby for the Fusion, not really super strong candidates, I would say. Once we get to the top four, we start seeing team performances that I think are on the level where you start looking at the coaches for Coach of the Year. Lots of team and individual improvement, unique strats, consistent execution, good substitutions, things like that. I would say Boston, just because Krusty left after three stages, it's hard to actually want to give him Coach of the Year. He did very well for those three stages, but then Boston, um, because he left for stage four, he got to skip having to really adapt to the meta, and then he goes to San Francisco, and San Francisco actually places worse than they did in stage three. If he had stayed at Boston, though, I think he would have had an argument for Coach of the Year, even if they had ended, stage four in a similarly kind of middle of the pack position. So, um, I think that does kind of knock Krusty out of contention. But when we look at the coaches for Gladiators, Valiant, and XL, I think these guys are the three real candidates for Coach of the Year here. So that'd be DPay for the Gladiators, Moon Byung-chul or MBC from the Valiant, and then Pavan from NYXL. The Gladiators here with DPay, I think have a pretty good case, honestly. I think DPay integrated the Koreans as they came in. Both Fissure and Void have been integrated very well. We've definitely seen this team improve over time, not just as a team with team cohesion, coordination, and obviously bringing Fissure in upgrades your team, but we've also seen other players, the DPS, Surefour and Hydration really step up a lot. We've seen Shaz continue to kind of come into his own as basically the best Western Zen. So I think we've seen a lot of improvement individually, and I think the Gladiators are probably the best team at maximizing their strengths, playing to their strengths. They're very good at running niche strats that take advantage of hero picks they have, like Hydration's Doomfist. Recently, he's Surefour's Bastion. But I think they're just very good at knowing what their strengths are and amplifying those, and I think that's a big testament to DPay. They were also the first team to kind of adopt fully and start showing regularly that 3 DPS rotation that we had before Tracer kind of got forced out of the meta a little bit, but when we would have the Tracer specialist in Asher, the hit scan specialist in Surefour, and the projectile specialist, in Hydration, and kind of swap them out as needed depending on the map. A lot of other teams ended up adopting that, and DPay with the Gladiators was really the first team to implement it. So I think a lot of credit should go to DPay there. I know he had a lot to do with the actual assembling of the team as well, and his philosophy there has really paid off. So I think DPay is definitely in the running, and I think if you value creative coaching and coaching around building up to your strengths as much as possible while also identifying and closing up those weaknesses, I think DPay is the best example of that. Now, when we look at the Valiant MBC, really his argument is not only that the team plays so high and has looked so consistent, but that when he showed up, the team was a mess. I mean, we all remember In and Out, right? And all this drama, and Verbo looking like he and Unko were about to get in a fight. So there was some rough stuff going on behind the scenes. MBC came in, made a ton of personnel changes, a ton of hard decisions, like releasing Envy, getting rid of Silk Thread, deciding what to do with agilities, moving Kariv back and forth into different positions. So he had to do a lot of stuff. They were in this 2-team system. They went down to a 1-team system. So just all sorts of stuff that that MBC had to kind of deal with. And now we look at Valiant and we say, what's their weakness? That they don't have a star player, that they don't have this superstar to build around. They don't get carried by big individual performances. It's consistent. It's based on the system that they've built, and they are able to beat teams lower than them much easier than we would expect from a poorly coached team, right? So MBC, really his claim is not only this consistency and looking good at the end of the season, right, being able to have this system in place, but how none of it was in place at the end of stage 1, and how big of a mess this team really was, how quickly he just completely transformed this team. And then we've got NYXL and Pavan, their head coach. Now Pavan, and I'm fairly certain that's how it's pronounced in his NYXL Origins video. It sounds like he says Pavan when he introduces himself. He explains his name as some sort of musical term. I'm not familiar with the term, but I did Google it, and Google says it's pronounced Pavan as well. So I'm just gonna go with that. But NYXL, their kind of claim has just been their dominance. It's just been them winning across, slight meta shifts. Obviously, they've kind of taken their foot off the gas a little bit in stage 4, but still a very good team, very consistent, able to probably have the best substitutions out of any team as well. Really able to swap out, that main tank, DPS, and main support role all the time on all sorts of maps. It's not very predictable, but all the players are effective. And to me, that is a sign of a very good system, very good fundamentals, very good communication. And of course, NYXL, they're just the best team in the league. They've been crushing it. They came in looking good. They've won multiple stage playoffs. They're, the first overall seed going into the season playoffs. So I'd say that's really the argument for Pavan is just their record, their continued and sustained excellence for NYXL. So I think all 3 of these coaches have a good argument for Coach of the Year. From just a win and performance perspective, it's hard not to give it to Pavan, but he doesn't have the same kind of fun narrative things to throw in, and I think a lot of that is because Wizard Hyung is kind of the more of the face of the coaching staff, especially to Western audiences. Pavan has not been very public ever since he's been with LW Blue way back. So that may be contributing, but I mean, just based on record and performance, it really is hard to pick against Pavan. But MBC and DPay also have incredibly strong arguments, and it's very hard to pick who the actual coach of the year would be. I think that this is an award that hopefully we will actually be able to give out in the future, because I think the discussion around it is a fun one, and I think coaches are going to be more and more important going forward. So if you have an opinion on any of these three candidates, or if you think someone else, maybe Krusty, maybe Arrow, deserves to be considered for Coach of the Year, you can let me know that as well in the comments on the video. I'd be happy to get into it, talk to everybody and on what they think who the best coach was here in Season 1.